Hi, everybody. Steve Olson with WSL. Tonight, special guest Jordan Maxwell has joined us to talk about Zecharia Sitchin, Planet X, and maybe some authors that you may not have heard of in the Planet X genre. Welcome to our show tonight, Jordan.
Thank you for being here.
Well, first of all, I wanted to also thank you for the 2 appearances that you had on WGSO Truth Underground Radio, and I encourage everybody to go check those out. I'll leave the link below to the link so you can go listen to other subjects that we discussed with Jordan, which is really kind of the big lie that's been foisted upon us. And Jordan, and then second thing I wanted to say to you is, even as a 54-year-old man that's got maybe 5 years hardcore truth community experience, I stand on your shoulders, and we recognize that.
Well, I appreciate it. And I thank you for the kindness of noticing, because so many people don't pay tribute to where they have learned things from. I always try to do that. If I'm learning something from someone, I always try and mention their name, where I got it from.
Yeah, I try.
And I appreciate that.
Yep. Sorry to interrupt you. Please continue.
Yep. So anyway, where do we go?
Well, we're going to start out by talking about now, Zecharia Sitchin is no stranger to you, is he? And I've got the Zecharia Sitchin Wikipedia page up right now so people can look at it.
Yep.
Just that context. I'm going to make a very strong point to this community that watches these types of videos, right? Mm-hmm. Almost everything we know about Planet X in the current community, you can almost trace a direct line back to Zecharia Sitchin. Okay? Mm-hmm. A lot of people will claim they came up with an idea, like, for example, the idea of the Anunnaki. And we know that Oxford University is also translating Sumerian texts, so you can get some of that information there. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, the whole idea of the Anunnaki, Nibiru, all of the things we talk about in this community, nobody that's listening needs an explanation to what we're talking about. I don't think you'd be shocked. You would be shocked about this, Jordan, but I've done my research, and I don't care what vector it comes out of. I can trace it back to Zecharia Sitchin. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, you knew Zecharia, right?
Yes, I was in business with him. He signed a contract with me, and I paid him quite a bit of money up front to sign the contract with me. I brought him from New York to my office in San Diego. And I asked him when he was in New York, I said, Zecharia, I have a business proposition that I'd like to discuss with you. Would you come to San Diego? And he said, yes. So I paid for everything. I sent him the airline tickets, the hotel tickets, everything. And I picked him up at the airport, him and his wife both. And we went out to dinner. It was about 10 different people went out to dinner from my company with Zecharia and his wife. And after dinner, we were sitting in the restaurant, and after dinner, he said to me, well, thank you very much for bringing me here. The dinner was great. Now, what's the deal? So I said, I have a proposition. I said, I'd like to send you to like 7 different countries, and I will finance the whole thing for you. And you take your wife, and it'll be a first-class tickets everywhere, and we'd like to film you on location in 7 different countries talking about your work. And I'd like to produce a 13 one-hour television series on you and your work and sell it to the national broadcasting, to public broadcasting, what do they call it, MPA, the National Public Radio.
Oh, yeah, NPR.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And sell it to the universities, sell it to colleges. It would be a 13 one-hour video series on Zecharia Sitchin going and talking about his work to the whole world, because I really liked him and I really wanted to promote him.
What was it that you saw in Zechariah's work at that time that had you so convinced that it would be a good investment of your resources to put him on that tour?
Because my gut feeling was, before I even met Zecharia, that there was some kind of a connection between we humans and some kind of an off-world intelligence. And I came to that conclusion by reading so many phenomenally interesting authors talking about that subject. There was a book I had that was wonderful. It's called The Genius of the Few. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Okay, it's a very impressive book called The Genius of the Few. It was written in London, in England, and it was talking about the ancient prehistoric world and how we were nothing more than created or recreated by extraterrestrials who came here and gave us a whole world of knowledge about religion and science and taught us to be who we are and intervened in our evolution and caused us to be a different kind of creature today. And it's called The Genius of the Few. And it was a fascinating book and written in London and in England.
Mm-hmm.
And then I knew of other publications like that, and I was fascinated with that idea that we have been reprogrammed and reproduced by other alien life forms in the universe. And I had heard so many lectures on the subject, and so when I found out about Zecharia Sitchin, I wanted to promote him because I was very close to him, and I liked what he was doing, and I wanted to do whatever I could to promote him.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got him to speak at lectures. I mean, I did send him around the world. It wasn't just me, but it was my publisher friend Paul Tice. That particular picture that Zecharia is holding there, I found it for him.
Oh, you found this. You found the copper plate or the picture of it?
I found the picture of that for him. He showed me the plate and said, "Can you find this picture for me?" And I found it for him, and I had one of NASA's scientists, or the son of one of NASA's scientists, who was also interested in Zecharia Sitchin. I had his son, the scientist from NASA, his son reproduced that picture for Zecharia. He painted a new picture exactly like that for his book. And so Zecharia showed me this particular picture, and he said, if you can find it. Well, I couldn't find it, so I just sent the picture over to this artist, and I think he was in Texas, and he reproduced that picture and painted a new picture, and I gave it to Zecharia, and he used it in his book. And so we sent Zecharia, I should say we, it was not only myself, but it was my business partner, Paul Tice. Paul Tice owns the bookstore in San Diego called The Book Tree. And Paul went with Zecharia. When Zecharia would go around the world, I sent Paul with him, and Paul was like his producer. And so we were very close to Zecharia, and we sent him to 5 countries. He was supposed to go to 7 countries, but he only went to 5. And the reason why is because the lady who was in charge of the foundation that I was working for, it was called the Truth Seeker Foundation, the Truth Seeker Company. And they had more money than they did. They had more money than they had brains. And so they let me do whatever I wanted to do. They made a deal with me that I could run the company for like 3.5 years, which I did. And the deal was that they would let me do whatever I wanted to do, and they would back it up financially, and which they did. Well, when I met Zecharia, I spent a lot of money on him, sending him to 5 different countries with photographers and lighting people and camera people and all of that. And then the lady who was in charge of the foundation at that time decided at the last minute, she decided she doesn't want to do this anymore. She's bored. She doesn't want to do it anymore. And I said, what do you mean don't want to do it anymore? We have a contract with this man. He'll sue you if we don't finish. And she said, I don't care. Let him sue me. I'm not interested. I don't want to fool with it anymore. So I called Zecharia to tell him, I'm sorry, but we can't finish the project. The lady who holds the money is not willing to put out any more money on it. Well, as it turns out, he had in the contract that we had put together, he put a clause in there that said in the contract that if he does not finish his project completely to his satisfaction, if it's not finished the way he wants it done, then he will keep everything for himself. He will keep all of the footage for himself, and it's in the contract. And so when we didn't finish it, he said, "That's okay. I don't mind. I've had a nice time traveling all on your money all around the world, and I'll just keep all the footage myself." And so a lot of what Zechariah was producing in videos was because I had sent him around the world, and he was using that footage because we didn't finish the contract, and so he it was his stuff. That was what the contract said.
By contract, he got to take possession of the creative material output.
Right, that's it. And so I was going to own it, but we didn't finish it, so he owned it. So I don't mind. I don't care because it's nothing for me. It wasn't my money. It was the company's money, and I wanted to promote him. If it doesn't finish it, well, at least I did something for him. At least I sent him to 5 countries, and he knew I appreciated his work, and I tried to do what I could to help him. But we were in business together. We did have many times that we could talk and talk in private. And so I've asked him a lot of stuff. And I asked him, I said, "Zechariah, I know that you probably know a lot more than what you've told us in books." I said, "What?" And he said, "Yes, I do." And I said, "Can you tell me about this planet Nibiru?" And he said, "What's to tell you? It's in the book." I said, "Yeah, but do you know when it's actually going to show up, if it's coming near us, when it's going to show up?" And he said, "Yes, I know precisely when." I said, "Is there any possibility you could tell me?" He said, "No, I can't tell you." And he said, "But don't worry about it. It will not come in your lifetime. It's a long ways away. It will not come in your lifetime. You won't see it. And I won't either." So that was that. So I learned that there is something to this idea of a new Nibiru, and I've also heard and seen printed in the newspapers and magazines where the U.S. Navy agreed that there is a planet coming, and it is part of our system, but it's got a 3,600-year cycle before it comes back. And I read that in an article published by the United States Navy. So, I mean, I just thought that was interesting that the Navy actually agreed that there is something going on with some kind of a planet called Nibiru. And of course, Nibiru was not new. Many years ago, there was a lady named Lana, Lana, Lana Cantrell. Lana Cantrell wrote a book called The Greatest Story Never Told. Lana Cantrell, The Greatest Story Never Told. And in that book, it's a very thick, large book, very thick book, maybe 1,000, 1,200 pages, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And she wrote everything about Nibiru, the Anunnaki, the coming of the 3,600-year cycle of Nibiru, the planet that's coming through, and that they were the people, they were the extraterrestrials who actually intervened in our natural evolution and recreated us to be who we are today, and that they were the ones who created us. And they were extraterrestrial, etc., etc. And that whole story that Zechariah Sitchin talked about, Lana Cantrell came out with it, with that same story out of a big book many, many years before Zechariah. But I'm not saying that Zechariah, took the information from her. I don't believe that for a minute. I think Zechariah was such an incredible, well-informed researcher that he came across the same information that she did. It's just interesting. She came across it way before he did. And she had a book called The Greatest Story Never Told, Into the Evidence of the Fall of Man from Higher Civilizations and Equality and Antiquity. But it's a very, very impressive book that she wrote, very impressive. And I called her and talked with her, and she sent me copies of it. And signed it to me with a nice letter in it. And so it's interesting that I do believe that there is something to this idea, because I've talked to scientists and astronomers who work with the United States Naval Observatory, and they tell me privately, yes, there is something to this story. We know it exists. We're not sure about some things about it, but we do know it's heading our way. And it looks like, from what Zecharia Sitchin is saying and others have said, that maybe there is something to this idea that was being expressed in Zecharia Sitchin's books.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as far as I'm concerned, I really liked Zecharia. He was always very courteous and very kind and very knowledgeable, and I always really appreciated his work, and so I wanted to promote him, as I did so many other people. Because when I was at that company, I had the money to do it.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't my money, and so I used that money that I had access to promote a lot of people, and Zecharia was just one of them.
Right. Well, you know, and this you don't. This is the you know how basically people get trolled in the internet world. You understand how that works, right? And the horrible trolling, horrible accusations, and things like that. And one thing I'd like to set the record straight with Zecharia: did you believe him to be a satanic Luciferian, bloodthirsty monster?
Not at all. No. Zecharia was
I'm saying it with my tongue in my cheek, because that is the lie. I think that's the trolling that goes on out there, is that people try to connect him to Luciferianism and worship of Lucifer, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, a lot of the same things that are said about Zecharia are said about me. I'm also supposedly working for the government. I'm a Satanist. I'm working for the devil. I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there on the web about me, and I know me. I know me pretty well.
Let's join the club. I've only been at it for 5 years, and I've already got a whole cult of people that make videos that say that I'm some kind of a shill, you know. Something.
Yeah.
And you know, boy, I wish they'd let me have a paycheck once in a while.
I've said the same thing. If I'm working for the government, how come I can't pay my rent?
Yeah, I never get money from them. It's like, yeah, so I'm not.
Yeah. And so, no, I think what it is that amounts to is that people who want to be in the spotlight, people who want to be important and to be recognized, but they've never done anything in their life to be recognized for, and they can't do anything because they haven't got anything to be of value to the people at all. Therefore, the only thing they can do to put themselves in the spotlight is to badmouth and lie about famous people, because now that they've connected their name to someone very famous, that now they are in the spotlight too. But they're in the spotlight because they have got nothing to add to the human world except to badmouth somebody who is famous and to lie about other people who are famous and for doing something for mankind. I think Zecharia Sitchin was an incredibly interesting man. Although I also know there are other things about Zecharia, that he was well known by the U.S. government. That I know because I've talked to people on the inside of government about him.
Yeah, we see pictures, not to interrupt, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Jordan, but we actually see pictures of him meeting with the head of the Naval Observatory, the U.S. Naval Observatory, Dr. Harrington, before he passed away.
Yeah. And so I could tell you other stories that there were times when the U.S. government would recall or would call into a meeting in Washington, D.C. or around that area. They would call certain people for meetings, the U.S. government would. And these people that they would call for a private meeting with the government officials were people that the U.S. government knew for a fact were in connection and connected to extraterrestrials. The government, U.S. government, knows that there are some people who are legitimately are talking or communicating with ETs. That much they know for sure. Mm-hmm. And so they nail it down who they believe, who the U.S. government believes are very legitimate people who are connected to UFOs and extraterrestrials. And once in a while, they'll call a general meeting and bring those people in from around the country. And the meeting is basically to say, the government is saying to those people, tell us what you know. because we know you're talking to them, and we're talking to them. But tell us what you've heard. We want to know. We're not asking you. We're telling you. We want to know, what do you know? And what are they telling you? Because we need to know. And so Zechariah has been called into those meetings. I've heard that he was called into certain government meetings because the government realized he was legitimate and he did know what he was talking about. And they wanted to know, Zechariah, what do you know that you haven't told everybody? Talk to us, the government. We want to know, what is it you know that you haven't told everybody? We need to know the whole story. We're not asking. So
wow. So that's super interesting, Jordan. I had no idea that they would do that. They would call people in. I suspected that they would, right? I suspected that if the government knew or had an inkling or had some way to detect that you're communicating with, let's say, a off-world species or something like that, that
right.
I would reason in my head saying, well, if I was in the government, if I was in the CIA, I would want to know what those extraterrestrials were saying, right?
Right.
And I would definitely, even if it seemed outlandish or weird, I'd still pursue it just because it could lead to some good information, right?
That's exactly right, because you never know what you're going to hear if you keep digging. If you keep asking and keep digging, you might find out something you didn't want to know.
Oh, that's
And
typically.
so that's what the U.S. government wants to know. We know you're talking to them. We know you're legitimate. Now, what are you talking to them about? And what are they saying to you? And we want to know, because it has to do with our life in this country. So what do you know that you haven't told us? And when are they coming back here? And what are we going to do when they get here, and all that kind of thing?
Yeah,
So
they probably wanted to know what their intentions were, what their
yep,
desires
exactly.
were, those kinds of things, right?
Yep, and what are their potentials? What can they do that we don't know about? And what are they? And when they come back, what could they do? What do they have to offer? Or what could they do if we don't get along with them? And so I know, because I've heard people who were there at the meetings mention in passing when they were telling me about their meeting. And I've talked to some of these researchers that were there, very high up figures in the government, who were being brought in and questioned by the U.S. government. And they mentioned that Zachariah Sitchin was there also. So it tells me that the government thought about Zachariah, that he was very legitimate, and they wanted to get his opinion on what's going on. And like you said, anybody who has an open mind, and your brain is like a parachute, it doesn't work if it's not open. And if you're in charge of getting information for the U.S. government, you better talk to people like Zachariah Sitchin, because he's well known for his work, and he may know something you need to know. So I know that that's what they were doing. They were talking to him in private.
Right.
And
Now,
so,
but this is a little bit of a segue off of Zachariah and your experience with him. But just for a moment, I wanted to kind of ask you, you're one of the most studied academic, scholarly people in the whole truth movement, not just Planet X. Obviously, it's everything, guys. Just so you know, Jordan Maxwell is not a Planet X researcher. He's a world, universe, cosmos researcher. So the question I have is, Zachariah spent a lot of time talking about the Anunnaki, but in your studies and the interest the government had in that and so forth, do you see evidence that the U.S. government or the governments of the world have been interested in the extraterrestrial phenomenon prior to 47?
yes, yeah, I think so. I think as far back as the early 30s, 28 and 29, Adolf Hitler was very interested in the occult world and the extraterrestrial presence on the earth. And there have been lots of ancient cultures that talked about our alien brothers, our cousins, and the Native Americans. All the ancient cultures talked about the extraterrestrials who were here. We call them our cosmic brothers. They who came down from above came down here. And even in Christianity, you have the concept of the angels. You ask any child, a Christian child, do you believe in God? Yes. Well, where is God? Well, God's out there. Well, incidentally, if God is out there, and do you believe in angels? Yes. Well, where are the angels? Well, they're out there with God. Well, I hate to tell you this, but if they're out there and God's out there, that means they're extraterrestrial. They're not from here. They're extraterrestrial. So God is an extraterrestrial because he's not from here, and the angels are. And I do a whole lecture on that subject about the extraterrestrials who are here. And I've got a whole incredible amount of information on that directly from the Bible. And you know that takes a couple of hours to go through it. But
Well,
I do believe
this would be a good time for me just to, I'm sorry to interrupt you, just to point out, so there's only one genuine Jordan Maxwell website, guys.
Yeah.
A lot of people that are trying to copy Jordan's work have been for years and years. I'll probably find out about this when I've been at it for 30 years, right? Is Jordan, it's jordanmaxwellshow.com. That's it. Jordan Maxwell Show. Now, one thing I want to show you guys on this website, though, that's a feature of Jordan that you just can't miss, and that's if you go down to right below his picture here and you click on this link, what it will do is it will take you to his research archive. And this, to me, is one of the greatest things you've ever done for humanity right here, my brother. You actually have taken all of your research and you're still digitizing a lot of it, I know, but a good bulk of it, and you put it on this actual Research Society website. And I wanted to thank you for that, but also point people to it. Any comments on that?
Yes. I have always wanted to put my work out into the world so people can see the kind of research I've been doing, because most people have never heard of the subjects I deal with. I deal with the world of the occult. The word occult does not mean devil or evil or demons. Occult is O-C-C-U-L-T, means hidden. It's a Latin word which means hidden. So if you put your hand in your pocket, dictionary definition is that your hand is occult. It's hidden. So there's been a lot of information we know has been hidden from us by governments and by institutions that don't want us to know. And the reason why is like George Carlin says, it's a big club and you ain't in it. So they don't want you knowing what they know. And so they've been hiding information from us. And that's why we as a people are so ignorant and ill-informed and unread, because they don't want us to know what they know. And so I have always been...
I'm going to interrupt you again. Just 1 second. Check this out, guys. This is the best deal I've ever seen, ever. Okay? He's asking only for a one-time donation of $10 to $30 for a lifetime membership. I've never seen anything like that before, and especially knowing how much I know about you now, Jordan, I've really studied up on your work and studied up on you over the last several months. This is an amazing deal, you guys. I am encouraging all of my subscribers to go and at least check it out, okay? And if you've got the $10 to $30, sign up, man. We all need to get this information back into our generation, because it's not in our generation, guys. It's in Jordan's generation of truthers. And for some reason, that there's a gulf between the researchers of the past, like Jordan and Zachariah Sitchin and these people, and us. I can't explain why, but I'm going to make it my life's mission to destroy it, because we need what they said. Because I have watched the people, the younger truth people, Jordan, just spinning around in circles on stuff that you guys studied 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and got the answers for. Right? And I know it sounds like a sales pitch, but it's not, guys. This is real serious research here. I make nothing from Jordan. This is all done by, we have no exchange of commerce between us. This is just Steve Olson's heart telling you, you need to go and check out Jordan's material. Okay?
Well, I appreciate that, and thank you. It's actually I don't know why it says $10 to $30, because it will tell you it's a $30 donation for a lifetime subscription, a one-time donation for a lifetime subscription. And I'm putting all of my work out there on this website. It's an enormous website right now, but I have I have about a terabyte of information, 1,000 gigs yet to go on that website. Massive research into pictures, documents, audio lectures that nobody's ever heard before, pictures and white papers, research papers, documents on all sorts of subjects that the world is just not really aware of, things which are going on in the world that have been hidden for years. And I've been doing this since 1959. We're talking about 60 years I've been doing this kind of work, and I put it all together. Now I want to put it out there, but I put it on my website. I have been talking for many years on radio and putting my work out there on the web for free. And I find that so many people copy my work, but don't give me any credit, and the bank won't either.
Right.
And so I decided, no, I don't want to give my work away. People just use it and don't thank me, don't even mention me. And I want to at least know that my work is being respected because I did it. And so I put it on my website for people to see if they want to pay for it, if they want to put some money into the website and pay for it, because I have to pay my webmaster. I have to pay him because I can't do all of this. I have a webmaster, and
one thing you don't have to do on my channel or and my radio show or anything, you don't have to apologize for charging money for your work, sir. You deserve to be.
Well, thank you.
Do.
I thank you for that. Yeah, because it costs me to put my website out there. It costs me to store all this stuff. It costs me for computers. It costs me to pay my webmaster. It costs me. And for what? I give it away for free, and people use it and make books off of it and television shows and movies off of my work, and I get nothing. And so I don't have anything.
It's so ironic when it comes to truthing, and we'll get off the subject here after the statement. I'll just say this. It's like we'll sit there and give truthers a hard time for needing donations or trying to sell a book or trying to raise some commerce to support their life.
Yeah.
Yet at the same time, we'll listen. I'm right now, the National Public Radio is having a pledge drive on my local area right now.
That's it.
And and it's like every 5 minutes they're asking for money, and nobody even bats an eye at that.
I know, but the big corporations, they're always doing fund drives for themselves as if they're down to the last 40 million. And so they're trying to raise more than 40 million.
Right.
Me, I don't have anything. I have no family. I have no wife. I have no family, nothing. I don't own anything. I live in one room with nothing. I live on Social Security of $750 a month. That's it. And so I need to put my work out there, but I have to pay my webmaster. He has to make something, and he does a beautiful job. He's very efficient, and I really appreciate him. So I have to pay him something, and it costs money, as you probably know. It costs money to have a website out there that you can accept credit cards, you can accept and run videos and show videos, etc. All that costs money, and I don't have any. So I have to charge something to keep my website alive and working.
And you will not get any pushback from me on that at all, sir. But let's shift back to Zecharia Sitchin and the greatest story never told, and that kind of stuff. So one of the questions I wanted to ask you is because you've been hearing more, knowing more than I know. Okay, period. And so the government takes the Anunnaki seriously, is what I just heard you say.
Yes, very serious, very.
Right. So what do you think their take is on the Anunnaki? Do you have a sense of that, or?
I think that they are aware that there's an other world of power out there, and that they had better understand it because maybe they might decide to come here. Spielberg has made movies. Why would Steven Spielberg make so many different movies dealing with extraterrestrials and aliens and UFOs? And the last one was War of the Worlds, in which the subheading of War of the Worlds was said, they're not coming here, they're already here. They're not coming, they're already here.
Right. In the War of the Worlds, all the equipment was pre-positioned, like buried deep underground and ancient, all the stuff that came out was already there.
It's already there. And it was in the city streets of New York. It just came up out of the street. Why? Because they are in control. Their technology is far superior to anything we could ever imagine. So they can hide themselves anywhere and do whatever they please. And we're just like ants. We're just like little children. And they can do whatever they want. And so this government realizes if you're going to be a government over the people, you better have control over everything. You better know what's going on, because the government, as I've said on the radio so many times, government is not interested in believing. That's what Christians, they call believers. Government is not a believer. They want to know. They want to know for sure. They don't want to believe. That's why they track you wherever you go, what you buy, what you sell, what you eat, and where you visit, and what books you're reading. They want to know who you are. They don't want to believe you're okay. They want to know it. And so the same thing is true today, as government wants to know what's going on. If there's something out there, you better find out about it and get prepared. And so I've talked with scientists at NASA who tell me some really strange stuff. We now know, NASA now knows that Saturn, the planet Saturn, is inhabited. They know that there's somebody on Saturn, and they've taken pictures of things going on the planet Saturn that most people do not even know the government has pictures of. And I was told that whoever is on the planet Saturn, and there are life forms on Saturn, and one of the rings around Saturn is being made by a UFO. There's a UFO out there that's big enough to make a ring around Saturn. And they've got pictures of this thing, and this UFO, a vehicle that's creating a new ring. The rings are artificial. Somebody's making them. And why are they making their rings? There's a book out there called Ring Makers of Saturn. Ring Makers of Saturn is a very important book. I knew the author personally. He was a good friend of mine. And I've got his book called Ring Makers of Saturn. And he was telling me about the fact that there are other life forms on the planet Saturn. And that this government knows and believes and knows that whoever they are on the planet Saturn, I was told, this government knows that whoever they are coming here. They're coming here eventually. And so we need to get prepared for whoever they are and whatever reason they're coming here. We know they're coming here because they're amassing some sort of a massive invasion kind of group, an invasion force. They know that there's UFOs coming into Saturn and they're not going out. So they're building up some kind of an invasion force. From what I can gather, from what's been told me by NASA officials. They know there's some kind of an invasion force that seems to be building up. And who are they building up for? Well, you have to assume they're building up for us on this earth. And that's why we got Hollywood movies talking about the extraterrestrial visitors, visitors. That's what Hitler was to Poland. He was a visitor. He rolled in and took over the country.
Yeah, he visited Russia and a couple other countries too.
Yeah, he was a visitor to quite a few countries in Europe. And
but
so
I already know what's going to come into the. I know the current conspiratorium very well. I can tell you that. Okay, I know what the current conspiracy world thinks right now, and I can already hear their heads going off saying, "Oh, this is the Carol Rosen." Yeah,
right, yeah.
What would you say? So Carol Rosen, just in case you didn't know, she worked with Werner von Braun.
I know. I've often wondered about that because she's a Jewish girl and she's very proud to have worked for a Nazi. And that's always bothered me. She was always very proud to tell everybody she really loved Werner von Braun, and he was an SS Gestapo officer in the SS. He wasn't just a regular German.
I don't know how people can impinge Jordan Maxwell and not impinge or question, his background. He was an actual avowed SS officer. He actually used slaves in his rocket factory. I mean,
that's right.
How could we say this man was credible? Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, well, that's true. I mean, so many people don't realize that NASA today is a Nazi organization, period. All the Germans, Nazi officers, scientists, physicists, plasma physicists, intellectuals, all the scientific minds of Germany were, after the war was over, were quickly gotten out of Europe because they knew that these Germans were brilliant people and they were very smart, just because they're an enemy, but they're very smart and you can use them, you can use their minds. And so they wanted to bring them out and get them out of Germany. And so it was the Vatican. The Vatican came up with the idea to get the Nazi officers and all the top Nazi brains out of Germany quickly after the war, because they knew that the Russians were coming in. The Russians were going to kill anything that was German. They were going to kill them. And the Vatican said, we can't afford to lose those German minds, those incredibly brilliant German scientists. Get them out of Germany quickly so that they're not murdered by the Russians.
Well, and then ironically, Russia took their share of the scientists as well, as I understand, Jordan.
Right. And also and today we know that the center, from what I can gather from the people I know who are really knowledgeable on the subject of Nazism, the Nazi Party, the Nazi movement is still today very much in charge, and they're doing what they have always done, but they're really doing it well, and we're paying for it. Americans are paying for it. Why? Because we brought them to America to work for us. The Russians took half of those German scientists, and they got some. But we, in America, we took the bulk of the best. We got the best minds out of Germany and brought them here to America and give them jobs in Washington, D.C. to run different departments of government in Washington, D.C. We appointed those Nazi officers to be in charge. And there was a group called the NASA. NASA was developed by the Nazis that were brought from Germany over here, who had worked for Adolf Hitler. They now put them to work for the U.S. government, and the Nazis built something called NASA, National Aeronautics Space Administration, NASA. NASA is a Nazi operation, period. No doubts about it. And the people who are running it at the very top are high degree officers in Hitler's machine. And so most people don't know that. And so I have been listening to some really interesting people who've done a lot of research on this subject and finding out that Argentina seems to be the place where the Nazi Party is finally home office now, is in Argentina, not Berlin. It used to be Berlin in Germany, where the Nazis were really, locked in. But today, they're locked into Argentina, and that's where the real Nazi operation is being operated from around the world. And
what about and not to I know it's so tempting to take you into, because tonight's subject was Planet X, and we'll get back to that in just a second. But I have one more question. So it is true what they said, that Argentina, in its proximity to Antarctica, it would seem that the Nazis made most of the significant discoveries in Antarctica, didn't they?
Yeah, it sure did. And there's something going on down there, I am quite sure, that is very legitimate, and because there are so many important people going down there for some reason. And so I know that there must be something down there that everybody who knows wants to go down and actually see it. They probably have found something down there that we don't know anything about. And I suspect it probably is that they have found some kind of vehicles or some artifacts from a prehistoric civilization that we would call extraterrestrial. And they have found it down there, and they know that there must be ETs here, because they found things down there that imply that the extraterrestrials have been here and they're here now. And that's why governments are very concerned about going down there and seeing what's going on, because they know extraterrestrials are here on the earth, and I know they are because I've had my own experience. I've had my own experiences with ET, so I know. I don't think or believe, I know. It's an extraordinary story. I could tell you a lot of things that have happened to me in my life.
Well, now you got me you've got me baited on this one. So I would ask you, could you share one of your experiences?
Yeah, I was at Area 51. And Area 51, I will guarantee you, I was there. Area 51 is housing extraterrestrials. There's no doubt about it. They are dealing with other world entities at Area 51, period. I will guarantee you that. Because I've been up to not in Area 51, you're not going into the base. But on the outside of the base is a little town, and I do mean little. There's only just a motel, a little group of motels, and some bar and a restaurant, and that's it. That's the whole town. But it's called Rachel, Nevada. And I've been up to Rachel many times, at least a dozen times. I've spoke up at Rachel. And so I know that there's something going on there because of what we saw when we were there. What I saw when I was there tells me that there's something extraterrestrial there at the base, and there's no doubt in my mind about it. And so that's why I totally believe in the presence of extraterrestrial life on the earth, because I've seen too much and I've heard too much. I've talked to too many people and had too many experiences. I know there's something here, and the people are beginning to suspect that we have otherworldly visitors here. So we do. Of that, there's no doubt.
And now I'm going to ask you to speculate, and I know that this would be speculation, but bringing us back to the Planet X Nibiru thing, in the recent years, especially since 2003, there has been a huge wave of Planet X, let's call them believers, and I was one too, hip deep, okay? And my skepticism isn't that it's real or it's not real. It's that, is that what we're seeing right now in our skies and our skyways and our byways? Because things are getting weird right now, Jordan. What's your take on what's going on right now?
Yeah, I think things are getting legitimately weird going on the earth. We're seeing things happening. We're seeing calamities, volcanoes, earthquakes. The earth is cracking all around the world with huge cracks in the earth. Tectonic plates are moving. It's a really a strange and dangerous times in which we're living right now. And I for one, am truly frightened and afraid for our future as humans on this earth, because I know the implications of what's going on. I've talked to scientists and physicists and astronauts. I've been in the company of the astronauts and talked with them privately, and I know what they're thinking privately and not what they're saying out in the public. And so I know that we humans are facing something really extraordinarily frightening if you understand the earth and where it is now and where it's going and what we've done to it. And so I think that there's probably something to the idea that extraterrestrials are here to try and save the human family. And so, but me trying to educate the world to the things I know is like trying to empty the Pacific with a cup, because as you got 7.5 billion people out there. And it's just a couple of people trying to educate the masses, and it's very difficult. But at least with the technology we have today, with the web, at least our voices can get out there to the world. And I think that the government, the U.S. government in particular, does not mind us talking about these subjects. They kind of, I think, want the subjects to be brought out into the public eye. They probably want people to know about these things, and they don't have to do it. They let us do it. They let us talk about it. We're telling the people. Because I think eventually they're going to tell us that, yes, we are being invaded. We have been invaded. They're here now. And so you need to wake up and smell the roses and get a new life and understand what's going on the earth. We have extraterrestrial visitors who are taking over this earth. And there's no doubt in my mind that's what's happening, and we're going to hear about it soon. And that's why they're allowing radio shows to talk about it. That's why they're allowing people to make movies. Spielberg makes movies about it. So there must be a reason.
Yeah, and it goes back to, so we do this little thing called Occam's razor analysis of the current situation, right? So
Yeah,
what I do is I write down all the different things that we've observed in my community, just in my little community, right?
yeah,
And you know, the earthquakes, the volcanism, the asteroids, the amount of traffic, I would say planets, planetoids, potentially spacecraft. You know, I mean, this whole list of things, and the conclusion that we came to earlier on was, well, it must be Planet X because nothing else could account for everything that's on this list, right?
right. Yeah,
But then I started to, you know, like you said, the open mind is like a parachute. If it's not open, you don't get a parachute. So
yeah.
I got to open my mind up to this. What if it's actually a conflict that we're in the middle of right now? That's another question.
Yeah, I think so. But let me tell you something. I had a guy I knew that was an art director, would work with the motion picture studios in Hollywood. And I lived in Hollywood for like 59 years, so I know the place. I know everybody in it.
Mm-hmm.
And he was telling me about one of his experiences because he was on the inside. He told me once, he said, I was assigned to work with Steven Spielberg on a project that Steven was doing. And it was in Orange County, south of Los Angeles, and a very desolate area in Orange County. It was way out in the countryside. And he said, and we set up a whole production crew out there in this dark area of Orange County that was way away from civilization. And we had to set up all the sets and all this stuff. And he said, and every day at noon, we would go to lunch, and he said, everybody working there had little scooters. We had little motor scooters because it was such a large area that they needed you. You need to, instead of walking way out there, you just ride out with your scooter. And he said Spielberg, being in charge of the whole thing, he had a golf cart, and he would run around, ride around his golf cart to make sure everything was going the way he wanted it. And he said, so I was working on the project with him, but I didn't have a chance to sit down and have lunch with him and sit and talk with him. And he said, so I wanted to meet with him and say hello. And he said, so one day we're sitting there having lunch, and I was through with lunch, and Spielberg come roaming by in his little golf cart. And so he said, I got on my scooter and cranked it up and want to catch up with him to say hello and talk with him. And he said, as I came up behind Spielberg, he's in his golf cart, and I'm on my little scooter. He heard the scooter. He heard it. And he turned around to acknowledge he heard somebody behind him, but he didn't turn all the way around to see who it was. But he's just letting you know he heard you. And he said, and when he heard me, he looked up, straight up in the sky, and said, yes, in the sky, and nodded to say yes. And he said, when he did that, instantly, two men popped out. It popped up on the road I was on. Out of nowhere. There was no trees or bushes to hide from. They just, boom, they just popped up. And he said they were wearing all black glasses, black jackets, black coats, the men in black. And he said they popped up out of nowhere. And they put their hands out, and he said, I almost hit them on the scooter. And he said, when I pulled up to them, they looked at me and they said, who are you and what are you doing here? And he said, I work here. They said, you work here? Yeah, they go back to work and leave Stephen alone. You go back to work and leave him alone. And he said, so I turned around and I looked at them and they went, they're gone. Instantly, boom, they were gone. And he said, I came back. And so what does that tell you about Steven Spielberg? If he looks up and says, yes, I want protection, boom, they pop out of nowhere, men in black. And they stop him and say, who are you? What are you doing here? Mm-hmm. So that tells me you don't have to be an astronaut to figure that one out. No. Steven Spielberg knows more than he's telling you. He's well connected to the other world out there. And that's why I believe he's being led to make all of those movies, because he's preparing the world for something which is coming. And there's no doubt about it in my mind. Spielberg is allowed to do what he does because he's being allowed to prepare the world. if you think about how much would it cost you if you were the executive producer for Steven Spielberg, how much would it cost you to produce an hour and 45-minute movie with Spielberg as the producer? You
200
gotta know it's gonna cost you a lot of money to do an Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Yeah, 150,
right?
$200 million at least, just starting price.
Easy, and that's for an hour and 45-minute movie. But remember, Steven Spielberg produced and directed a television series for 19 hours. It was a 19-hour series called Taken, Taken. Spielberg produced and directed a television special called Taken, and it was 19 hours. And so who has the money to produce Steven Spielberg for 19 hours on a television series? Well, Taken was about the subject known about people who have been abducted by aliens. And Spielberg did 19 hours on that, on one television series called Taken. And so you got to figure if he spent 19 hours on that, and then other movies like Indiana Jones and the other movies like Close Encounters
E.T.
and E.T.
Yeah.
and all kinds of UFO movies and stuff, and 19 hours just on one subject. Who has that kind of money to finance Spielberg for 19 hours? And why would he spend so much time on that one subject of Taken, where the story is about the extraterrestrials who are taking humans? It's because he knows something you don't know. He's well aware and being financed. Very powerful people are financing him to tell the world a story. Tell the world the story of how it feels to be taken. Why? Because somebody knows what's going on in this planet, and they're getting prepared to let the people know what's going on. And Spielberg has been chosen to be one of the people that tell us the story, and do it in such a way that it's a wonderful, fun-loving story about extraterrestrials. No, it's telling you something. They're giving you a warning. Something is going on, the war of the worlds. And it's a very extraordinary story of what we don't know and how we've been so misled by the what we call Hollywood. And I told you, and I mentioned this to you, I think before, America was founded by Celtic people, the people of Europe, and north, east, west, and southern Europe. If you take north, east, west, and south and put it together, it becomes NEWS, news. Anything that happens in north, east, west, or south is NEWS, news. And so the people who founded America came from the north, east, western, southern Europe. They come to America. And so before the Roman Empire existed, way before Rome existed, there was already people in Europe, in the northeast, western, southern Europe. There were already people there. And those people were called Celtic Druids. And the Celtic Druids were a very impressive white population, what we call the white man in Europe. And they were very powerful people, very mystical and powerful people. And you look in history of the Druids. And one of the most important symbols of power in the Druid community, one of the most important symbols, was a magic wand, like Merlin the magician with his magic wand. Magic wands, which we have today, orchestra leaders who lead their orchestra with a magic wand. Disney has Mickey Mouse with his magic wand. And of course, in England, you have Merlin the magician with his magic wand. Magic wands were always made out of the wood of a holly tree. It's made out of Hollywood. And today, that's why we have a place called Hollywood, because it's a Druid symbol for political power. And so much of what we call today the Jewish religion, Judaism, is actually a Druid religion. If you want to understand Judaism, go back and read about the Druids, because the Druids gave us what we call today Judaism. That's a whole story in itself. And then when you understand the Jews that run Hollywood are actually Druids. And Druids, the most important symbol in the Druid system of logic and life is a magic wand. Magic wands are made out of the wood of a holly tree. That's why you have Jews in Hollywood, because Hollywood is a symbol for the magic wand. And now you go to the Bible. There's a Druid priest, and that's Caesar talking about the Druids. That's a whole new subject to look at. The Jewish religion based on Druidism.
That's fascinating. I never heard that connection before, so I will definitely research that and look at it. But it brings up another, again, every time I get you on, I have so many questions, right?
Yeah.
One question, though, that relates directly to this Hollywood idea and the Druid idea. Have you done any study on the fashish?
On the what?
I'll see if I can find one here. It's a fascist. It's almost spelled like fascist, but it's actually that pole. It's
the fasci.
Yeah, the pole. It's like several poles.
Yeah. That's the fascis. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's got an axe on it, and it's in our. By the way, there's two of them in Congress standing.
That's right. It's on both sides of the presidential podium where the president stands. On both sides behind him are two symbols of world fascism. They're called fasces. It's a bundle of sticks with a hatchet head.
Right.
A bundle of sticks that are tied together, and it's got an axe head. Why? There it is.
Right here. Yep, right here.
Yeah, there it is.
You see guys?
Those two symbols? That's fascist. That's a symbol for world fascism. Fascism is, and let me explain what fascism is. It's corporations that get together to run the world. That's what we call fascism. Corporations that run the earth. Governments don't run the world. Money runs the world. And governments don't have any money. They can just suck the money out of you. But the people who have the money are the fascist international organizations that we call corporations. And that's a whole story right there. We could talk for hours about corporations and how the corporations run America and control the world.
And they have run the world for thousands of years. This is what people don't understand.
That's right.
You, Jordan, is that, what the United States is, especially with the Federal Reserve, is a corporate government partnership.
That's right. It's a corporation. And corporations cannot make a law. Ford Motor Company, General Electric cannot make a law. Only God can make a law. Only government can make a law. Ford can't make a law that you have to abide by because they're a corporation. They're privately owned companies, so they can't make a law. But because they're a corporation, they can have their own policy. Mm-hmm. I mean, so Sears has a policy.
I used to write policies for companies.
Yeah, so it's not a law. It's not like it's written in stone for the nation. No, it's just for a particular corporation have their own policies. And so that's why you have today the police. The police are backing up the policy makers. We have policy makers, not law people, who are writing laws to the United States because the United States can't make any laws. We can only have a policy. Why? Because we are no longer the United States of America. The United States of America existed up to the year 1870. In 1870, the United States no longer existed. And it became known no longer as the United States of America, the Republic. It became known in 1871 as a corporation. It was incorporated as a company. And so today, the United States, of which the president is ruling the corporation, well, that's what all corporations have to have a president. You got to be a president of a corporation. You got to have a vice president.
CEO.
Yeah. So you got to have a vice president of a corporation. So we got a vice president. You have to also, part of corporate laws, you have to have an attorney You have to have a financial officer. You have to have an instrumental, somebody to control the money. And so that's what we have. We have a Department of Finance. And so the United States is no longer the United States of America. It's a corporation. It's owned by a handful of people that were incorporated this country back in 1871, and you have no idea in the world that you are working for a corporation. And that's why today, if I see you coming out of a restaurant with a woman and I say to you the next day, you know that woman I saw you with last night, she's bad company. You better know that she's bad company. And you say, mind your own business. Business, company, you're going to get married. She's going to be your partner.
I'm going to get a new lease on life.
Right.
Everywhere we look in our language, it's about money.
It's all about money, and money is considered water. That's why we say money goes through your hands like water. No, money is considered under international law to be a liquid asset. It is money. It's a liquid. And that's why you put your money in a bank. Because why do you put money in a bank? Well, that's where you find a river. It's called a river bank. And what does a river bank do? It directs the flow of the currency. Money is considered currency. More is a current, water, cash flow, a liquid asset. Comes in and goes out, comes in and goes out. And so money is considered to be water. And therefore, you are 96% of water your body is. And so the money is based on your body. That's why it's on the back of your Social Security card. On the numbers on the back of a Social Security card are usually written, printed in red. That's a whole subject about how money is connected to you and your body.
If you guys want to hear that whole, that's just a little tidbit of what Jordan, if you want to go to, I'll leave the link below the radio show. Jordan does a very detailed analysis of that with us on the WGSO radio show. And I didn't mean to interrupt you, Jordan. I just wanted to be considerate to your time. One of the things, though, is why do they use a banded together thing of rods with an axe sticking out of it? Did you ever get an insight on that?
Yes, because George Bush Jr. used to brag about when they were in the Middle Eastern war, he kept using the term a coalition. We're not the only ones there. There's a coalition of governments. We got other governments with us. It's a coalition. A coalition is a group that comes together to do something. And so that's why you have a fasci on both sides of the president's podium. You'll see those Roman symbols for fascism. And what that is it's a bundle of sticks with a hatchet head. And the hatchet head is because in all the ancient nations of the world, all the ancient cultures of the world, always symbolize God as an axe head. Always. The axe always represented God. Why? Because he's the one that can give you the axe. He can cut you down. He can build up because of the axe. Axes were always a symbol of God. And so in the Roman Empire, you got all these sticks because the Romans said to take one stick to beat your enemy is not good enough. It'll break. You need to get 2 or 3 sticks. Now you got something. Or better still, if you get a dozen sticks and tie them together. Now you don't have a stick, you got a board. Now you can really do some damage. If you got 12 sticks tied tightly together as one, you've got a coalition. You've got a group of nations together, a coalition. A coalition is nothing more than a fasci, a symbol for world fascism. The Nazis used it in Second World War. Benito Mussolini worked with Adolf Hitler.
Used it prominently. The Romans used it prominently, and then, but
everywhere.
My question is, why does the United States government seem to have the fasci?
Because we are the modern Rome. We are the modern Roman Empire. That's why they call America the New World Order, because the old world order was the Roman Empire.
So we're not looking out for the New World Order. We are the New World Order is what you're saying.
We are the New World Order. But if you
waiting for the New World Order, guess what?
That's why it's on the back of the dollar bill. You will see the pyramid on the back of the dollar bill with the little triangle and the eye in it.
Mm-hmm.
And then beneath the pyramid, it says Novus Ordo Seclorum, new order of the secular, secular or seclorum. Secular is the world, Novus is new, Ordo is order, and Seclorum is the world, new order of the world. And then above the pyramid, it says Annuit Coeptus, which is Latin, which means basically our enterprise has been blessed with success, or our enterprise is now a success. Or God has favored our enterprise. And so therefore, the $1 bill is telling you that there's a new world order down the bottom of the pyramid, and our enterprise, the people who are putting this new world order together, are telling you it's been blessed with success. It's a success already. That's why we're printing the money. And all over the world, people will have at least $1 bill in their hand. And if you're holding a $1 bill from the United States, you're holding the symbol for the whole new world fascist order. What Adolf Hitler dreamed that he could do.
Fascism,
Right.
New World Order, coalition, fascism. Get it. I get it.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's where we are, and that's who we are. And that's why today, all the communist countries, if you go back to the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, when the Soviet Union was being founded, all the communist countries were always referred to. Go back and look at it in encyclopedia. All communist countries were officially referred to as the People's Democratic Republic. You have the People's Democratic Republic of China, the People's Democratic Republic of North Korea, the People's Democratic Republic of Cuba, always the People's Democratic Republic. Why? Because communism is democratic. That's why we have a Democratic Party today. It's a Soviet Communist Party. The Democrats are nothing more than a bunch of Soviet communists who have changed their name from communism. We call it democracy. And so America is out spreading democracy. Yeah, with guns. If you don't like it, we'll kill you. And so we have today democracy in America. That's why the Democratic Party hates hates Trump. They can't stand him. Why? Because they have been working so hard. All these years they've been working to bring about world communism, in which they will subject the whole world to a totalitarian fascist state under the Roman Empire. And here the new president's coming in and saying, no, I don't want the fascists to run this country. I want the people of America to enjoy their country and be free. So we're not interested in your communism, your Marxist-Leninist Soviet communism crap. We don't want it. Well, the people in this country who have been working for the overthrow of our country for many, many years are called the Democrats, the People's Democratic Republic. And that's why today the Democrats hate the president, because he is an American and they are nothing more than Marxist-Leninist Soviet communist operatives, period. That's why we're having the problem today. It's a cultural problem. It's not an economic problem.
Well, no, let me bring up another point, though. You'll see that probably the most pronounced struggle of the 20th century was World War II, which in my mind was a struggle between communism and fascism more than it was. We really had a very little role in it, by the way, guys. You think that we had this huge role in World War II. Consider this. Russia lost 20 million people. Germany almost as many on the Eastern Front. We only lost 600,000 total for all theaters put together. Just one front of the war, 40 million people died on that battlefield. Where do you think the hardcore conflict was? It was between communism and fascism, wasn't it, Jordan?
Yeah, it was between communism and fascism. And communism is fascism. Fascism is the rule by corporations. Corporations rule the people, corporations. And boy, it's a really big story when you get into what is America and where did we come from and who is running our government and what is the difference between fascism and communism today. Communism wants to promote the common man. This is why it's called communism, the common man. The man who does nothing, he just goes to work and drinks his beer and watches TV and watches the ball game. He's the common man. Well, that's commonism. Myself, I have always wanted to be uncommon. I want to be able to do something for the human family that is not that other people haven't done. I don't want to be a common man. I want to be uncommon. You know, when you look at the Nikolai Teslas, the Nikola Teslas, the Albert Einsteins, the Royal Wrights, all of the brilliant minds that we have lit up our world and given us radio and space flight and lasers and all the wonderful stuff that we enjoy today, the common man did not give you that. The common man works at the store and drinks his beer and watches TV. He's not interested in creating nothing, period. He's just a common man. And so that's commonism. Well, communism says we venerate and uplift the common man. Why? Because he's never done anything. And he's not going to do anything because he doesn't know how to do anything. He just works every day and gives his life away and pays all the bills. And that's another thing. You can't pay a bill in America. We say things like that. We use terms like that. We say we need to pay this bill or we need to pay that bill. But did you know lawfully you cannot pay a bill in America? That's the law. You can't pay a bill. You can discharge a debt, but you cannot pay a bill. And most people don't realize how the American system of economics works. Let me give you an example of what I'm saying. You can't pay a bill. And so suppose you were, to give you an example, suppose you were a painting contractor and I call you to come and I want you to paint my office. I want you to paint my room. You come over here as part of commerce. This is the way it's done. You come here as a contractor and you look the job over and figure out what it's going to cost and how much you need to make. And then you give me a bill. Say it's just a small little room. You give me a bill for $100, okay? Then when you're through with the job, what do? You come and give me a bill for $100. I reach into my pocket and pull out my wallet and I give you a $100 bill. And so I paid you. No, I didn't pay you anything. You never get paid. You gave me a bill for $100. I gave you a $100 bill. You owe me $100. If you had given me a bill for $20, I give you a $20 bill. So when you give me a bill, I give you a bill. It's called a $100 bill, a $1 bill, a $5 bill. It's a bill, and you owe me. So you've never paid for anything. You merely discharge the debt because you are equalizing the debt. You're discharging it. Okay, I owe you $100.
Yeah, why else would they call it a dollar bill?
That's right. That's right. It's because you now owe me $100. So since you owe me $100 and I owe you $100, let's just call it even. Just keep a record of it for the taxes. So I paid you, and I didn't pay you anything. You work for free. But that's okay. The guy at the grocery store, he worked for free too because you're giving him a $100 bill.
After he gives me a bill for the food, yeah. So listen, everybody, guys, we've taken advantage of your time, and you've been gracious, and I know you've had a long day, and I just want to reorient everybody to the Jordan, and the only place you can find original, real Jordan Maxwell, you know for sure it's Jordan Maxwell, is if you go to the jordanmaxwellshow.com. All because there's a lot of fakers out there. And then I want to point your attention one more time to the Jordan Maxwell Research Society website, where you'll be given a chance to actually tap into the archives of one of the world-leading researchers on what's really going on in the world, Jordan Maxwell. Jordan, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any final things you want to say before we let you go?
I would just say scroll down to the top again. Scroll down. Right there. Then go up a little bit. Right there. No. Go to that strip. There it is, right there. Hold on. But drop it down a little bit. Drop it down a little bit. Down. Drop it down.
Down?
Yeah, I mean the whole screen. Drop it down. You're going, that's it. Keep dropping it down.
Okay.
Keep going.
I'm to the bottom.
Okay, no, you need to go to the top and just drop it down a hair. Now just go right there. Stop. You see there it says Home and Research Society website. right there. Click on that, and that takes you to my Research Society website. And that's where I'm putting all of my research work on all these subjects we talk about. It's all there. You just go there and you can log in. And when you log in, it takes you to show you how to get into my Research Society. My research website is carrying all of my work. Everything I've been doing over the years, I'm putting it on the research website. And so
it's very exciting that you finally, finally get a chance to really put this together, Jordan. I know it's been something you've been wanting to do for a long time.
Yep.
And here it is. It's happening, guys. So,
yep. 26 years I've tried to put my work out there. For 26 years, I've had people calling me names, trying to destroy my reputation, to steal that which I've worked for, to take everything I've worked for and throw it in the garbage, and to destroy my name and my reputation and my work. But finally, I have someone who came in to set up this website for me, because I'm 80 years old. I don't know beans about websites. But I do have a dear friend who is good on computers, and he has put it together for me. It's called the Jordan Maxwell Research Society. All of my work I'm going to put on that Research Society. It's massive now, but it's going to be a whole lot bigger soon, because I've got like a terabyte, 1,000 gigs of material that I still have to put on my website. It's going to be massive. But I got stuff on there now that'll turn your hair white. I've got some.
Turned my hair white several times in the last couple of weeks. I've
got some really interesting stuff on my website that nobody else has.
Yeah, I mean, you've blown my mind. You've blown my partner Jim's mind. You've been really blowing us up, and we talk about you all the time. So.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
But just remember, if you're going to my website, it's Jordan Maxwell Show. Just 3 words, Jordan Maxwell Show. That's it. Anything else is not me. And if you go to Jordan Maxwell Show, you can also join my Research Society. It's on my website. There it is, Research Society.
Yep, we just go right to that. Jordan, thanks again. We'll definitely have you back. We'll definitely have you back on the radio show. Again, guys, click the links below if you want to hear previous conversations we've had with Jordan Maxwell on WGSO 990 FM. In addition, we'll probably have you back on WSO again soon, sir. It's been great talking to you. It's really good getting to know you, too, by the way.
Well, thank you.
And I'm honored to get to know you, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate your kindness. And anytime you want to do a show, just let me know. I'm always here.
You got it, brother. And thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful evening, sir.
You too. Bye-bye.
Take care.